My first spot appeared when I was 12 years old. I had a little light spot right here on my left eye. And, at first I was a little freaked out by it, and my parents weren't really bothered by it. And then we found out that it was vitiligo. And then my mother, once we found out what it was, and she goes, okay, now that we know what it was, I can tell you that, your dad has vitiligo. And my sister, my grandma, like a bunch of people on my dad's side had it. I didn't even know my older sister had it until we had a conversation, I want to say like a year or two ago. And she told me, she's like, oh yeah, I had vitiligo, spread really bad. And they sent me back to Panama and started eating, the food and getting in the sunlight, and hers hasn't come back at all. And I said, oh, wow, I didn't know that. She was like, oh yeah, I was really depressed. She was like 6. And I said, oh, wow, I did not know about that. But my parents, because they, my mother was familiar with my father's vitiligo, my father has it. So they were very good with, you're beautiful, you're you, it's just some skin, there's nothing wrong. My father, mommy, there's nothing wrong with your skin, you're fine. Like that's my dad. So it was, obviously I'm still in middle school, so it was still very jarring for me. Kids are mean. And it was hard at first. It was definitely hard. And then I got in high school, and I met my best friend at the time, and she was just my defender. She was my bruiser. If you looked at me for too long, she's like, why are you staring at her? Don't stare at her. And I'm just like, that's right. Don't stare at me. Like, it was just one of those friendships that really, I don't think I'd be this person without that friendship. And, from there, I was actually just recently telling my son, I thought I was ugly until about my sophomore year of high school. Like, I just had this complex from, being a dark skinned girl living in, I lived in a predominantly white town, and those kids were mean, and they made fun of my dark skin. They made fun of my lips. They made fun of my hair, so I made a joke. It's funny. It's actually a really viral TikTok right now of how when I first got diagnosed, I thought I was white legitimately because I was wishing to be white when I was younger so that the kids would make fun of me. So when I got diagnosed, I legitimately was like, I did this to myself. I should have never wished to be white. Why would I do that? Like, I really thought. And my mother was like, you're not white. You're not turning white. You have vitiligo. I'm like, okay. And so, yeah. And so I just kind of leaned on my friends. Like, I had a really pivotal uh, picture day, and I had a really experience with my friend. His name is Christopher J. Brookins, and he literally, some kids were making fun of me, and he stood up and said, you know what, Sharon's going to grow up, she's going to realize she's beautiful, she's not going to pay any of you guys any mind. And mind you, this is like the most popular boy in school at the time, captain of the basketball teams, all tall. And so I was like, all right, if he thinks that I'm good, then I am good, and I didn't really feel like that, but I kept faking that funk until I was like, I'm gonna fake this funk until I feel like that. And I truly started feeling attractive when I was in middle, and when I was a sophomore in high school. And from there, it was, I didn't cover up. I tried to cover up once, didn't like it. It's just I didn't know how to do makeup, so it looked like I went like this with foundation, and so I was like, no, this isn't for me. I'm not a makeup person, no. And so after trying to cover it up that one time in high school, after that, I never really tried again until I like got into makeup. Um, and then, yeah. And so, I kind of went through my journey, and I thought it was okay. Didn't realize that I was, by avoiding talking about it, by not acknowledging it at all, that was how I was coping. I didn't realize that until right before my 30th birthday, when my vitiligo started spreading on my face. And I was just like, all right. And I'm like, what do you mean, all right? Like, we're okay with this. We're okay with this spreading on our face. I am really okay with my vitiligo. This is a surreal feeling. Like, I'm okay with this. And and from there, the acceptance, the last thing that I accepted fully was my hands. I was a very hands in my pockets type of person. And then, the day I realized that I'm literally putting my hands in the camera and making sure that people can see my hands, because my vitiligo has, of course, decided to come off my face when I started doing advocacy, and when I realized that I'm doing this more often, I'm like, wow, I used to really shove my hands in my pockets. Like, this is really what acceptance kind of feels like. And that's when that's when I started building Vitiligo from there, because I'm like, you know what? Other people need to experience this. So that's where I am in my journey now. I had two moments in my life that were particularly hard, and definitely shaped the way I view my vitiligo now. The first one is that picture day I was talking about. It was my first time, it was my first time taking a picture with vitiligo. For the most part, nobody really talked about my spots, and my family, I didn't talk about it, so nobody talked about it. Everybody treated me normal. Nobody really acknowledged it. So when I was standing in line to take my picture, this boy's just, "What's wrong with your face? What is that?" Just starts picking at my skin. And I ran into the bathroom and I am crying. I am devastated. Like, oh my goodness. Like, in my head, I'm laughing at it now because in my head, I was like, oh my God, somebody saw it. And it's like, of course, somebody saw it, Sharon. But I'm 11, 12. I'm rational at this point. So I'm just like, oh my God, I'm devastated. And so, that moment could have gone one or two ways. But the way that it did go was my friends came into the bathroom and they were like, listen, you are beautiful. There's nothing wrong with you. You take this picture. He's a stinky boy. Nothing he says matters, and, you take your picture. And so I took the picture and I hated it. I hated it because I knew I was crying. Like I could tell that I was crying, and I was like doing this smile. But I look at it now and I'm like, yo, you made it through that. You smiled. Look at that big, huge smile. You persevered. You didn't die. So you're good. And that moment was, honestly, I think that if I was isolated in that moment, I don't think I would be this person. I don't think I would have, because shortly after that, I went out for the basketball team. I really kind of came out of my shell a little bit because I was like, I have support. There are other people here that, when I don't feel confident, they're going to make sure that, I do. And I'm still friends with them to this day. Like I really, really am. And then a second difficult moment, this happened. I actually made a video about this in Sephora where, I was getting makeup. This was I want to say like 2017. This was one of the biggest reasons that I started Vitiligo. I was getting some makeup. Rihanna's Fenty had just come out, the HD, okay, the HD, and they didn't have my shade, and I couldn't find my shade anywhere. And finally it came back out. So I went into Sephora and I knew what shade I needed. And so there was a Black woman, which is what upset me the most. A Black woman comes up to me and she's like, hey, you need any help? And I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. Because I knew what shade. She's like, oh, let me help you out. Let me help you out. I'm like, okay, she's trying to get her commission. Okay, let me let her help her out. And so, she's like, let me help you with your shade. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure which shade. So she put a couple shades on my hand, and it wasn't really vitiligo there. And then she went to cover up the vitiligo on my face. And this is when I had a really big butterfly. And I was like, oh, I don't usually cover my butterfly. And she goes, well, why not? And I said, it took me aback. I really was like, wait, what? And it was like, well, I don't typically cover it because I'm fine with the way I look with my vitiligo. And she's like, oh, but you would be more beautiful if you covered it. And I was like, and I don't have the words. So I am actually entertaining this conversation. And I'm just like, well, I just don't. And then I was like, well, maybe if I show her this picture. So I show her a picture of my vitiligo actually covered. And so like, listen, I do cover it sometimes. Here's a picture. I went to a wedding. The way I had to do the makeup, I had to cover it. She goes, yeah, like this. You should do it like this all the time. You look beautiful here. And I go, well, I look beautiful with or without it. Like, I'm okay. And she goes, yeah. Oh, she was like, yeah, I think my brother has what you have. What's it called again? Leprosy? And I just was like, I have vitiligo. Leprosy is a flesh-eating, like bacterial infection. My melanin is just missing. And I think she realized, she's like, oh, all right, well, here's my thing. And I'll catch you up at the register. All right, have a good day. And disappeared. And my friend that was with me at the time, I think, honestly, I think only God, because if she was there, she would have read that woman into the ground. And after that, I was just kind of like, what just happened? And then, like, literally walking back to the car with my friend, she's like, what's wrong with you? And I didn't tell her until we left, because I know she would have marched right back in there. And I told her, she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, this is exactly why, because of how you're reacting. She's like, Sharon, that is not okay. People can't do that to you. And I'm like, I just wonder how many other people she has offended doing this. Like, thank goodness I'm somebody who was able to process and handle that. You could have ruined someone's life with your words right there. So that was so difficult for me. And now looking back, I have lists of things that I would have said now. And that's why I was like, you know what? It's time to start Vitiligo. Like, this will not stand. So I think those two moments were the most difficult in my life when it came to my vitiligo, definitely. Beautiful thing about my skin is the purpose that it's given me. For a long time, I asked, why me? Why do I have this condition that I've never seen anyone else with? That, because when I was 12, there was no representation. There was, a forum website that had nothing but words, no pictures, nothing you can really connect with or connect to. So it was, for me, it was just like, why me? I was that why me person for so long. And then I've literally over the past few years figured out exactly why me. Because if I didn't have vitiligo, I would not be this compassionate person. I wouldn't be as empathetic as I am. I definitely wouldn't be anywhere near as understanding. I'm able to put myself in other people's shoes, which literally all of these qualities just make me a better person in general. I used to be very quick to anger because of my vitiligo. And whenever you used to ask me, it used to either be, you would either just get venom or you would get nothing at all, And I think that, just the growth that I've experienced, I don't think I would have grown in the ways that I have. I don't think I would have connected with the thousands now of number of people I have. I don't think that, there are so many people that, they send me messages and they tell me, you don't even know what you've done by just putting these pictures up. I one of my favorite teenagers, his name is Junior. His mom wrote me, like, he saw your page and he's just like, Mom, look how cool these people are. Like, I'm cool like that too. And he wanted to take pictures and just like oh my goodness, my kids, they always have me just like always. I'm a crybaby, so I'm just reading their message. They send me pictures and I'm just like, you guys are so cute. I can't take it. Like, we recently, I sent them all their Super Litty Kid Committee packages. So they all have capes and they sent me all their pictures and I'm just like, oh, you guys are so cute. I can't take it. So I definitely think the most beautiful thing about my vitiligo definitely has to be the purpose of it all. Like, I'm just filled to the brim every day. It does not feel like I've been doing this for years. Like, it feels like I just started this. So I've never ever thought I'd be someone who would want my vitiligo here. Like, I miss the vitiligo. I used to have this huge butterfly and I miss it so much. And like, when the vitiligo, the little bit around my eyes started going away, I'm like, this is surreal. I have people asking me what I did to make my vitiligo go away. And I just want to tell them I want it back. Like, I just want it back. But yeah, I think that, yeah, definitely the purpose is the most beautiful thing about my vitiligo by far.